Buenas noches. How is everybody? Thank you for joining me tonight. Let me know if the volume isn't where it needs to be because I don't have my headphones in, so I'm not sure. Um, I'm so tired. I am so tired. I wish I could have more get up and go tonight, y'all, but I am so tired. Uh as I'm going to guess, many of you are here because you want to find out like how things went in Scandinavia and all of that. Because if you're new, hey, you're coming in like the second, third installment of this saga. I at the beginning of September. Let's see if I can turn the volume up. At the beginning of September, is that better? I traveled to the US for a few days. I attended No Madness Fest in Newark. And then immediately after that, I spent a couple weeks in Scandinavia. I visited Norway, Sweden, Denmark. Yeah, Denmark. I got back, and then a week later, I went out of town again and then got back yesterday. So um, I'm tired. I am not, I'm not the traveler I used to be in the before times. I see y'all. I see Ivana in here starting mess. Uh, I see y'all in here wanting to know. I probably opened my mouth when I shouldn't have. And now I didn't painted myself into a corner. Monica talking about I'm here to hear about your new Viking Bay. Okay. Y'all are wild. Okay. So, um, if you're new, welcome to the channel. I'm Adelia Aborishade. Although most people know me as Picky Girl Travels the World, this is a channel where we talk about travel. We talk about particularly solo travel because that's what I do most of the time. We talk about living abroad. I have been living outside of the US for 6 years. I call Mexico City home. And we also talk about money on this channel because, a lot of us travel or move abroad to be free, but freedom ain't free, y'all. So we talk about the money piece of that as well. So if those are topics that float your boat, you are in the right place. Thank you for being here. Please subscribe, turn on notifications. So that you'll know when I go live, like I'm doing tonight, and I will do again on Wednesday. Wednesday is my normally scheduled day to go live. So yeah, that's who I am. So just to catch us all up here. Wait. Yeah, no, abroad ability. I opened my mouth last week when I shouldn't have. And like I said, now I promised y'all explanations, and so now I gotta deliver because I gotta keep it 100 with y'all. Okay, so my trip to Scandinavia was really part of a bigger experiment, a bigger investigative journey to find a country to have second residence in. Those of you that have followed me for a while, you know that that is something that has been on my mind. And I I thought okay, it's time to get serious about getting second residency. Things came together because I was going to be in the New York area. Uh, it just so happened that I figured that would be a good time to hop over to Scandinavia because I can't really get a direct flight from here in Mexico. My preference is for direct flights. And Norse Airways, which is a very new, like they just started flying in June of 2022. Very new budget airlines, Norwegian, was running a deal One-way flights between Oslo and New York were like $114. My round trip ticket was $242. So I can't pass up a flight deal. So I was like, okay, this would be a great time to visit Scandinavia, Norway, because the flight was to Oslo. And then I figured, here's something about me as a traveler. And this is one of the lessons I learned on this trip. Um, for me, it's not worth traveling if I'm just going to one country. Like, um, are y'all having trouble seeing me? Because Double T says her screen is black. Because from what I can tell on my end, everything looks fine. Okay. So I don't like to travel and go just one place. I feel like I need to get more bang for my buck, especially if the one place is someplace I've already been. I feel like I need to add another country. So, like in December, I went to Italy again, and it just didn't sit right with my soul to only go to Italy. So I decided, because of COVID, the only other country I could fit in was San Marino, but I still got two countries on one trip. Back in January of 2020, when I went to Europe um, for Chinese New Year, this is when I was living in China. At the beginning, we didn't know this, of the pandemic. I know that I'm the kind of traveler who doesn't like having to constantly pack and repack, and I don't want to bump around that much. I like to go somewhere and be there. But I still did like 10 cities in 28 days because I was just like, I need to get as many countries as I can. So, what does that have to do with this trip? Uh, 4 countries in 2.5, 3 weeks? No, too much. So that's one of the first lessons I learned on this trip, is that the Adelia who I am now, she can't be doing that. 2 countries max from here on out on a trip. And if that means I have to adjust the length of trips, I will do that. But about the third time I had to pack up my stuff, my bag again, I was like, this ain't it. I'm not trying to do that. So that's one of the things that I learned. Okay. Um, Joan asked, what sites do you use to find flights? Um, you know, I hear great things about Scott's cheap flights, but I don't pay for that. Primarily, I find flight deals on what do you call it? Secret Flying. Uh, and then there's another one. Or I might just go into Google Flights and put my dates in and where I'm leaving from and just see what pops up. So it varies. I've happened to find this thing, the deal about Norse, one of the travel groups I'm in, somebody posted it. And so I already had the idea in the back of my head about taking this trip. And so that's why I went ahead and booked it. Um, so uh the big question we've discussed, oh, what is happening here? We discussed whether or not Scandinavia was a good choice for me for second residency. And based on my research, it seemed like it could be. At least, it looked good on paper. Uh, Equality between men and women's very high. The Scandinavian countries always rank high on the like happiness index and things like that, quality of life. So it seemed like it would be a good choice. And I can confirm that, yes, I could live in Denmark. I could live in Sweden. Norway ain't it. Not for me. And before folks come and jump up in my comments to extol the virtues of Norway to me, if you like Norway, that's great. That's fine for you. I don't like Norway. It's not for me. And it's okay that I don't want to live in the country that you want to live in. I didn't think I needed to say that. I thought, we understood that every country ain't for everybody. But the number of people who got in my inbox to let me know that I was wrong about Norway, excuse you, excuse you. So, yes, I could live in those places. But the question is, could I live in them full time? That question is unanswered, and the answer is probably going to be no. I visited the capital of each country. So I was in Oslo, I was in Stockholm, and I was in Copenhagen. And I really, if I had done more planning, which the traveler I am now, I don't want to plan nothing. I just want to show up. Um, I would have bopped over to Malmo in Sweden for the day while I was in Copenhagen. I would have taken the train right over to check it out, because I suspect that if I did move, that might be an option, like maybe work in Copenhagen but live in Malmo. I don't know, because there are a lot of people that do that. The comfort, this is the big question. It's the weather. While I was there, temperatures were in probably the 50s in, trying to think. I think Sweden a little colder? One country was colder than the other two. So for me, what they were like, oh, this is late summer, early fall. For me, those were winter temperatures. And one of the things I kept thinking about as I would go out and walk around is I would remind myself, like, girl, it's going to be colder than this. It's going to get way colder than this. And so that's something else. I had to gather my ideas here because my brain been all over the place. That was one of the things that I learned from doing this, was that I lost my train of thought. Was that okay? How I react when it's cold weather, because I'm from Houston. I live here in Mexico City, where it is rarely cold for long periods of time. When it even is cold here, I mean, like, y'all, it's 76 today, but I was wearing a hoodie because if you're in the shade, it was cool. Um, but when it gets cold here, like, it may be cold in the morning, but then it warms up. Same thing in Houston. That wasn't so much the case there. So um, I do wonder if I can make it in the cold weather, because when it is cold outside, that makes me want to stay in the house. That makes me not want to go anywhere. And so I was feeling like that when it was just a little cold and rainy. I can't imagine what I would feel like in, like, full on winter. So that's a serious concern. So while I could definitely see myself living in Copenhagen, I don't know about the rest of Denmark. I could definitely see myself living in Stockholm, possibly Malmo. I do not think that I could live there full time. And that then, of course, creates another problem, because the whole idea is to get residency in one of those countries. And we've discussed this before, that really and truly, when countries are, whatever their residency scheme is, they generally fall into two categories. Either they want you can pay with your money, or you can pay with your time. I do not have golden visa money, where I some countries is like, give us so many millions of dollars and we'll give you residency and you never have to come, or you have to come one day a year. When you don't have that kind of money, they want you to live there. They want you to contribute to the economy. And so there are restrictions about how much time you can spend out of the country. Um, and so if I'm going into it already knowing I don't want to be there for the winter, um, that then kind of it sort of locks me in on like where else I can be spending my time within the year. How the rules aren't even very clear cut from what I could see. It's not like, oh, you just have to be here 6 months a year. It's like 6 months, and then within the first 3 years, you need to have spent, X number of months, which works out to be more than 6 months a year. So um, that is a concern. I'm not sure how I could make that work. And being there, like I said, pretty much confirmed that I don't think I could do it year round. Let me scroll through here because I'm a flag y'all's questions and come back to those. Hey, Doris, glad you could make it. Okay. All right. I'm trying to mark the questions so I don't lose those. Because again, a lot of the people who live in that part of the world, they split their time. But the problem is when you are an immigrant, your movement in and out of the country may not be as free as someone who is a citizen. Um, Again, this is one of the things that Mexico has spoiled me on, that Mexico does not have any restrictions about how much time I have to spend in or out of the country. Now, if I were to become a naturalized Mexican citizen, that would change. And so that's one of the reasons why I probably won't go that route. Um, Okay, Julie had a good question. What about the expense? These countries have a high cost of living. Just wondered if that factored into your thinking to live in these countries. This is an excellent question. And that's one of the things on my list. Where did I put it? It was actually the next thing on my list. Cost of living, like, I knew these places were expensive because we talked about this. I'd been to Iceland before, but like living here, all the places I've lived thus far, uh, Honduras, Mexico, Kuwait, China, the cost of living was never an issue. Um, it's not something I think about on a day to day basis, but being in Scandinavia, it would be. I I shared some stuff in my stories about prices. Uh, everything I read said you could expect like Norway to be about 20% more expensive than the US. And a lot of the things I saw, they were more expensive. Sweden was the least expensive of the three countries. Um, but like, what would it look like for me there? Would I be able to afford an apartment and live on my own? I don't know. I When I was in Copenhagen, I was talking to somebody about the cost of rent. And basically, she was saying that if I wanted to be near the city center, $1,000 a month. If I was willing to live further out, I could get around $600 a month. Which, if you're in a high cost of living place like the US, those numbers probably don't sound all that bad to you. After living some of the places I've lived over the last 6 years, I don't love those numbers. I still want to be able to go and do things. So, cost of living definitely factored in. I sort of had like a come to Jesus moment that my life living in one of those countries would probably look a little different. Like there may be a little bit more work and a little less leisure. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm not sure how I feel about that. So, no, that was a really good question. And one of, somebody reminded me of this, that part of the reason, because I noticed when I went to the grocery store, it's not that food was necessarily expensive. When you're eating out, it's about the cost of labor. Um, People earn a livable wage. Okay. Taxes are high because there is a social safety net. So when you are eating in a restaurant, that's contributing to those prices. Um, so I'm not mad at the prices. I'm just having to rethink and reconfigure what my life might look like if I were to move to one of those places. Okay. Did you like the food in Denmark and Sweden? Yeah, but I didn't eat any of the traditional food. I don't think. No, I don't think I ate any of the traditional food. Uh, I mean, outside of the bakery. So, both Copenhagen and Stockholm were international enough places that I could eat and be okay. It just my cost to eat out, because we've discussed how much I dislike cooking. Um, that that may look different if I were to live there. Okay. Something else that is on my list. Okay, the time zones. When I lived in China, I was working a day job. I was recording podcast episodes at all hours of the night because I was trying to accommodate my guests. Um, I was, trying to be as flexible as possible. And I had some leeway there, but there were several like work things I had to do. And the time difference kicked my ass. And we're only talking about like 6, 7 hours. Uh, I think my sleep schedule is still thrown off. What I discovered was that I'm not very good about like making a schedule and sticking to it, which would be, I'd need to structure my days a whole lot more if I was going to live in a place where I am not on the same time zone with my clients. And I don't know. I don't know. Do I want that much structure in my life? I mean, I could do it, but do I want to? And that right there, that's the overarching theme of what I learned on this trip. There, just because I could do something doesn't mean that I want to do it. um, so yeah, trying to stay up, like I go to sleep early anyway, but it would be like 6 p.m. here in Mexico City and it's 1 a.m. there, or midnight. I couldn't do that. Not on a regular basis. I did have Swedish meatballs and they kind of sucked. uh okay, at my hotel in Sweden. And this is something interesting. Okay, so I asked if breakfast was included because I thought it was. And the guy working the front desk was taken aback. He was like, "Where you been staying that they don't include breakfast?" He was like, almost every hotel in Sweden's going to include breakfast. Well, in Norway and in Copenhagen, in Denmark, they did not. And at the breakfast, they served some, I guess, Swedish things. Again, if it wasn't a pastry or a Swedish meatball, I didn't try it. Um, let's see. Monica's like, this is what we came here for. What about your date? Okay. So, uh, as I mentioned to y'all previously, one of the routes to a residency visa that I was considering was what I colloquially term a girlfriend visa. That is not the official term. I think it's like a family reunification visa. Sort of similar to the fiance visa that you hear about on what's that show? Mia is trotting about for some reason. Go sit down. 90 Day Fiance. Except in most of these countries, oh, excuse me, y'all. My allergies have been acting up. In most of these countries, you don't have to be married. Y'all can just be dating in order to qualify for family reunification. And so I was thinking that that might be one route that would work for me, because historically, getting work uh, in Europe is hard when you don't have a European passport, when you don't have a European work permit. Um, so, so I thought like this might be an option, as I mentioned before. Uh, on paper, culturally, some of the beliefs that are supposed to be held by people in this part of the world align with mine. So I thought, like, if there is a man for me, this is probably where he is. So, in addition to being a scouting trip, this was, I don't know, do you do scouting for dating? I don't know. So, I got on the app, I got on Tinder, and I tried to date. And I went on some dates, and some of the gentlemen I met on Tinder were very nice. Some of them not so nice, because men go men wherever they are. Um, I the only place that I got date was in Copenhagen, and both of those were nice. They were great. Was it like a super love match? No. Uh, and actually, what I learned was that uh, the girlfriend visa probably ain't gonna be for me, because if you uh, listened to or watched the podcast episode I did with Katura Kendrick, uh, I don't really want to be somebody's girlfriend. Like, for whatever reason, these two things did not click into my head. That, like, if I was going to meet a man and he was going to help me qualify for a visa, I was going to have to like him and want to spend my time with him. And that seems like a lot of work. And y'all know I don't like to do a lot of work. Uh, and okay, let's talk about the app situation. First of all, if you are trying to find someone to date on an app, that's work. That's like a whole nother job. And I am not interested in having a job. So, one of the conclusions I came to, because yes, there are men in both Stockholm and in uh, what's the other place? Copenhagen. There are men there that I would date. I went on a couple of dates. There were men I found attractive who were taller than me. There were some options, but I can tell you this: Adelia will not be meeting them on an app. That's done. Ain't no more of that. So, I don't know if we'll call that a success or not. Um, I don't know. I think the issue isn't necessarily with the men. It was really with me. Like, do I really want to be somebody's full-time girlfriend? Like, is there a visa for part-time girlfriends? Because that might be more my style. Working twice as hard. Yes, you are correct. Uh, I am picky about a lot of things, apparently. And yeah, yeah. Oh, that's a good question, F Doctor. I'm gonna save that. Um, has Denmark and Sweden's diversity increased with the increase in immigration? Are there more brown and black folks there? I would say yes. Like, I regularly saw brown and black people. I even met an Afro-Cuban guy. Where was I? I'm trying to, it must have been Copenhagen, or was it Stockholm? Maybe it was Stockholm. I went out at night, kind of, to a bar to hear live music, and I regularly saw black and brown people. Now, not like huge numbers, but regularly saw them. And so, yeah, I would definitely say that comes from immigration over the last few years. Um, okay. KB, I missed the reason why this is a preferred location of choice. Is it just to acquire another passport? No, it's really about some of the values that I have that, according to everything I've read in that part of the world, those are also values that people hold. There is that. There is, if you can get residency in one European country, you can move freely. Come here. Come here. You can move freely throughout Europe. Come here. She thinks I'm trying to play. Come here. Ugh. You're making too much noise. So yeah, the ability to move freely throughout Europe, to have healthcare. Healthcare is a right, not a privilege. On one of my dates with the guy in Copenhagen, a lot of the things he was talking about, like what he didn't understand about the US and why they did this and why they did that, I was like, yeah, that's why I don't live there no more. And thinking to myself, and that's why I want to live here. So that's kind of some of the reasoning behind that. Okay. Um, there is a very thin line between bravery and stupidity. And I think this time I landed on the stupid side of that line with Tinder. I mean, and y'all ain't got to tell me that Tinder is a hookup app. I know that. I know that. However, Tinder is probably the most universally used dating app. Um, and so it made sense to use it uh, for this experiment. I actually think I am an introvert. I am an introverted introvert, but I feel like being an introvert is not a negative thing in that part of the world the way it is often looked at in the US. Like, I get the vibe that as a culture, they're kind of introverted too. So that didn't really seem to be like much of an issue. Let's see what else is in here. I just want a man to bring me tacos. That's it. That's it. I don't want the extra. And I guess, like sometimes stuff in your head, but you either have to hear it or it needs to come at you from a different point of view. And that's kind of what happened during this trip. So somebody who watched the other video about this reached out to me. She lives in Denmark, moved there for love. And so we went out to lunch and we had this whole conversation about dating and about the men and the culture. And it was very enlightening. So I don't want anybody to feel like I feel negatively about the dating prospects in, let's say, Denmark or Sweden. Actually, I don't. The question is, how much dating do I actually want to do? Like, how much do I want to put up with a man? And the answer is not a whole lot. So, um, funny, I used to be on OkCupid back in the day. So been there, done that. I don't have it in me I wanna stay in here being messy. Where are you going to meet them then? If I'm not on an app, maybe I will just be out somewhere and somebody will be like, she's cute. Let me go talk to her. Because honestly, I think that works better for me than because I don't think I have what it takes to be successful on the apps. Because as we've already established, I am picky. And so I swipe left 99.9% of the time. I don't like the look of your face. You took a picture at a bad angle. How dare you wear that shirt? Swiping left. So I what that's one of the things I learned during this experiment is that if I'm going to meet a man, it's going to have to be in real life. And most of my real life is in my apartment, so I guess I'm going to have to go outside. You know. Uh Hinge. I don't know. I tried Hinge. But I only tried Hinge here in Mexico and I didn't think it was great. I didn't think it was great. Let's see. Okay. So, okay. Oh, but one of the things in my conversation with this young lady who I had at lunch, one of the things I just told y'all was that everything I'd read said that this is a difficult part of the world that to find a job in. And that's one of the main reasons I was considering a girlfriend visa. She had found two jobs. She was like, in my experience, she works in education, which is what my background is in. She was like, actually, there's a shortage here. Like, that's an area that they are looking to hire people and often are willing to hire foreigners for. And so that is a possible option for me. Um, of course, there are still the other issues with this whole thing about how much time I would need to be in the country and splitting my time elsewhere. Um, but finding a job there could be viable. But then that circles back to what is the life that I want? Just because I could get a job there, does that mean I really want a job? Do I want to be told where I have to be every day and what time I got to be there? I don't know. Essence. Yes, you are right. I can move to the Netherlands, self-employed. And so as I was experiencing all of this, the Netherlands kind of moved up because that would be a easier solution. There are still the questions about how much time I'd have to spend in the country. And there's still the question of what's the life I can afford there. But from a visa perspective, the Netherlands is up there, definitely. Uh, let's see. Uh, I found a place in Stockholm that did, or was it Stockholm or was it? It might have been Oslo that did salsa dancing, but they weren't having anything while I was there because I was like, that might be a way uh, to do it. Yeah, we have to go outside more. Let's see. Okay. Oh, okay. So y'all be paying attention, and like no other, was really paying attention. Have you kept in touch with the guy you met in New Jersey? Uh, yeah. Funny thing about that, we had a date this weekend. So there's that. There is that. Uh, and I did not meet him on a dating app. Literally, I was standing there and he was like, she's cute. Let me go talk to her. So my theory is bearing out. Um, I've thought about having somebody. My best friend has basically told me she's not going to try and set me up because The first time she did, I don't know if I told y'all the story of the second date I went on in Cuba. She set me up with that dude. It wasn't good. And then I think when subsequent guys she tried to set me up with, when she described me to them, I think I come off sounding a little scary. So I don't think anybody's ever going to try and set me up with somebody. I kind of don't. I don't know. There may be a man that I can tolerate. There may be, but there probably ain't many of them. Okay. So, other things that are on this list. What are y'all? I'm looking at these comments. What are y'all talking about? Some of the things y'all are putting in these comments are wild. Okay. All right. I was saving this to later in my list, but Auntie Lou asked, and here's the thing. Auntie Lou asked, why do you want to leave Mexico? That's just it. I don't. If there's any takeaway from this trip, from the time I spent in Scandinavia, it is that there is no place that I want to live as much as I want to live in Mexico City. I don't really want to live somewhere else. What I want is residency. I don't really want to live somewhere else, but I told y'all, most countries, either if you don't want to live there, you got to pay them a substantial amount of money. And if you're not going to do that, they're like, look, you got to live here. So this is the fundamental problem, or the fundamental issue here is I love living in Mexico. I love living in Mexico City. And there is really no place else that I want to be. So that is kind of leading me to reassess my whole country shopping theory. And that maybe I should not be approaching this from the standpoint of looking for a country that meets the criteria of places I want to live, but really should meet what it is I'm looking for. I want universal health care. I want residency, because I believe you should have options. As much as I love Mexico City, my eyes are wide open. I know that there are environmental issues that may make this place a very difficult place to live in the next decade. I mean, as soon as that, I know the nature of the relationship with the United States, between the United States and Latin America, is always a concern. In college, I took a class called the CIA in Latin America. All right. So the US has been up to some shady shit. And while Mexico has better footing than, let's say, a Guatemala, a Honduras, a Panama, when it comes to pressure from the US, there's still the relationship still exists. They are top trading partners. What is the saying that when the United States catches the flu, Mexico gets a cold, or something like that? Like, I would be lying to myself to deny that when shit hits the fan in the US, I'm not going to catch some blowback here in Mexico. So if and when that happens, it would be nice to have another country I could go to that I could stay. So if I think about residency in those terms, Costa Rica once again becomes attractive. And while Costa Rica is located in Latin America, which is definitely in the sphere of influence of the US, Costa Rica has no military. Basically, if you were to invade Costa Rica, the rest of the world should jump your case, because they are neutral. They ain't got no military. You would be picking a fight with someone who is unarmed. I don't really want to live in Costa Rica because San Jose is not Mexico City. So I really don't want to live somewhere else. So that makes this whole thing that much more complicated. Uh, so yeah, there's that. Ba, 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 ba. I'm catching up on the comments. Sean, that's crazy. Um, yeah. This is something I wondered while I was in I think Stockholm. I was like, did cuffing season already start here? Because that's very much the vibe I got. I was not holding tryouts for cuffing seasons uh, or anything like that. This was kind of just a fluke thing that sort of happened. Um, Port Charles Library. I did a panel chat on this channel about dating in Mexico. And several of the ladies shared what their experiences have been. So you might want to check that out. Um, so F Doctor asked this a little while ago. What are your 5 must-haves when it comes to your next residence? So if I can't live in Mexico City, like you know, whatever has happened and I can't be here anymore. Um, I've said this, I don't know how many times, but when people were all up in my DMs giving me shit about not liking Norway, forgetting the fact that I am a city girl. And I'm sorry, Oslo is cute, but it ain't Mexico City. Um, so it's got to be an urban place. I still have to have mass transit. I need a place that is walkable. Climate is still a big one. And so, as we are facing a climate catastrophe, this is actually one of the things Scandinavia has going for it. Because as we've seen, weather is getting crazy in different places. And from everything I've read, Scandinavia is probably going to be one of the better places to be as we get more and more into climate change. I do not want to be hot. I will suck it up and deal with being cold before I will deal with being hot. So that eliminates a lot of places. And I don't know what number 4 is. I mean, number 5. I guess if I'm picking a new place, it's for real universal health care. Mexico has universal health care. It is guaranteed by the Constitution. That's on paper. In practice, the quality of the universal health care is not where I would want it to be. So I would want to live in a place where like there's not even anything I got to sign up for. I just walk into the doctor and it's like, of course, the doctor will see you. You are a human and you deserve medical treatment. There are no forms. There's none of that. You scan my ID and we keep it kicking. Like that would be the kind of place I'd want to live. Now, does that place exist? Where is it? That's the magic question. That's the magic question. Uh y'all, I feel like we're spending a lot of time talking about dating. And this is the thing I like talking about the least. Um, okay. I have attempted to date. Both times I have lived in Mexico City. You see that I am, is it Corinne Louise? Is Mexico City not a good place to meet men for dating? 22 million people, with half of them being men. Why not look in your own backyard? Am I missing something? I have looked in my own backyard, and for the most part, I have found Looney Tunes, crazy folks who basically are stalking me. Like, I have gone on multiple dates in this city. Have I ever gotten a second date? I was asked for a second date, but it was okay. How do I say this without without giving away too much or making y'all want to know more? Uh, I went out with somebody, it wasn't working. I went out with somebody else. Turns out the second dude worked with the first dude and they lived in the same apartment complex. And after seeing me with the second dude, the first dude was like, "Can I take you out again?" "No, you can't. I don't like you." So, my dating here in Mexico City has kind of been comical and bizarre. And it's work and I don't want to do work. So there are plenty of men here. There just aren't any for me, I don't think. I don't think. All right. So let me go back. um the timing is a big, this is again, this is my hang up. Y'all know Halisi and Rick from Our Black Utopia. They have residency in Mexico. They're working on getting their residency in Portugal, and Portugal would seem like an obvious choice for me as well. However, they are going to be living in Portugal and Mexico's their backup, and so that works. My problem is I love living in the country that doesn't care how long I'm here, as opposed to it being the other way around. So, um, if something changes and I don't want to be here all the time anymore, this becomes a whole lot easier for me to navigate. But um, it just this is my favorite, my most favorite place in the world. So uh that makes this trickier. And so maybe for now I stick with my residency in Mexico and I don't add another one until later, and I don't stress about it. It's not like there's no deadline on this. I just thought, I had been talking about this for years, why not like put some effort into exploring it? But this is, if I don't get another residency now, this is always something I can come back to uh, at another time, you know, and that's, you know, that's cool. That's fine, you know. And I know that Mexico is not for everybody. Mexico City is not for everybody. My guest on Wednesday's live is going to be talking about how she was like, nope. She tried to make it work here in Mexico City and was like, nope, this is not the place for me. And I think, and one of the reasons I wanted to have her on here is because I think it's important that y'all hear um, multiple perspectives, because just because this city is a great fit for me does not mean it is going to be a great fit for everybody. So, okay. All right. I'm trying to catch up in your comments. So, we'll see. But that's where what I discovered. So let me see what else is on my list. We talked about cost of living. We talked about the weather. Okay, small bathrooms. I am a minimalist, okay? I don't need a lot of things. But what would be nice is to be able to take a shower and not stand like this. And in every one of those countries, I had a teeny tiny bathroom. And I just kept thinking, I can't wait till I get home and I can take a shower and stretch out my arms. So I know that apartments are smaller in Europe, and I have no issue with that. But if I had my druthers, we would be stealing space from the kitchen, not from the bathroom. That that might be a deal breaker for me in Scandinavia. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, y'all breaking down cuffing season here in the chat. Appreciate y'all. Um okay. What else is on my list? We talked about that dating is work and I don't like work. We talked about the fact that I went on some dates. We talked about, okay, not really wanting to live someplace other than Mexico City. And then I thought about, like for me, Mexico City makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. It's a 2-hour flight to Houston. I think it's a 3-hour flight to Atlanta, where my best friend lives. Um, I have incredible friends that I have met here in Mexico. Um, the climate, I love the weather in Mexico City. Uh, the culture, Mexican culture, like I get it. I can move within it, and I understand it, I guess, as much as anyone not born in it can. And I don't know that being in Scandinavia is going to give me all of those things. Just an unknown, something that an observation I made. Um, uh, okay, so let's see. Um, have you researched Portugal? Yes, Portugal makes a lot of sense for me. The two issues with Portugal are, again, how much time I would be required to spend in the country and having to learn Portuguese. I'm not real excited about that. And so that's a struggle for me. You have to that's a struggle for me. So Portugal is still on the list as a possibility, but it is further down the list. Like I said, and I know that the Netherlands is not part of Scandinavia. Nobody got to come in my comments to tell me that. I know that. But it is in the area. And so given the visa situation, given like what I felt on the ground when I was in the Netherlands, like I could see that definitely moved it up the list a little bit. Uh, so okay, seeing if y'all had any more questions in here. What would you say the best personality mindset for someone who will thrive in Mexico? That's okay. This would be a better question if you were talking about a specific part of Mexico, because Mexico City versus, let's say, Durango, two very different situations. But we've talked about that being flexible because, okay, I'll give y'all an example. Uh, I went on. Nah, I guess I'm gonna have to spill that. I had to fly to go on my date this weekend, and the procedures for checking in and out with immigration for those of us who have residency, it's different. It was different last week than it was when I left 2, 3 weeks before, and it was different when I came back Sunday than it was when I left on Friday. So being flexible, being able to just roll with things not making sense all the time. I think that's probably the biggest mindset that will help you live anywhere in this country. That's what I think. Um, Simi, what about meeting another expat? The consensus is when you talk to Black women who live abroad, it is that the men who live abroad as well are not looking for us. They are looking for local women. Uh, and I don't really care, a man's a man. The big question is it a man I can tolerate? And that's not easy thing to find. Okay. All right. Okay. If to get residency in Portugal, you do not need to speak Portuguese. However, if I am going to live in a country and I'm going to live there, like I'm going to immigrate there, I want to be able to speak the language. I think part of my experience in Mexico has been as positive as it has been is because I don't want to say I speak the language, but I do more or less. Like, so it is, there's not a test, there's a test for language with citizenship in Portugal as there is here in Mexico. But if I'm going to live there, I want to speak the language. So that's a me thing. That's not a them thing. Um, so yeah. Okay. Ah, see, some of y'all picked up on what I said. Okay, so what else is on my list here? Okay, we talked about like I had to reevaluate what were my reasons for wanting residency, and those reasons aren't pressing in this moment, and they are something that can wait. I think I will revisit Costa Rica as a possibility. And I might look at some Eastern European countries, possibly. And who knows? I was going to say maybe even South Africa, but I'm thinking again from the standpoint of a place I wouldn't mind living, not really a place that might make sense for what I want. Again, I at this point I just want to back up, and this may not be the time to pursue a backup. That may be something that waits a little while. Um, I don't know. We're living in the apocalypse. Who knows what the world gonna look like in 2 years? Did you consider another Spanish speaking country? Yes. Spain makes a lot of sense. Their financial requirements are higher than Portugal. However, the fact that the language is Spanish would make things easier for me. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I'm less enthusiastic about Spain. Like I've been to Spain several times. It was fine, but I don't know. I don't know. And okay, that's definitely something that Scandinavia has going for it is the amount of English spoken. Like it was, I found myself apologizing. Somebody would speak to me in Norwegian or Swedish and I wouldn't know, and they'd immediately switch to English, and I would be like, I'm sorry, I don't speak Norwegian. I'm sorry, I don't speak Swedish. I'm sorry, I don't speak Danish. Because I feel bad being in somebody's country and not knowing the language. But if you are somebody where you're like, I really don't have it in me to learn another language, this may be a part of the world you want to consider, because the number of English speakers, it was just very common for places to have signage in the native language and in English, menus in multiple languages. I don't know that I went anywhere where some, and I didn't necessarily just hang out in tourist places, cuz I had no plan. It was like I just kind of roamed around wherever. Um I can't think of any place I went where the person I spoke to or interacted with did not speak fluent English. So, if that is a concern, that is definitely something that Scandinavia has going for it. Um, Definitely that. So, um, so yeah, that is everything from my list. That's where we stand now with country shopping. I think country shopping for me personally um, is on hold for a little bit, because at this moment, I'm not really shopping for another country. What I am shopping for is a backup residency. And that I think requires a different approach. Um, or maybe I just wait until I do want to live in another place, another country, and then bring things back up, as uh and reevaluate then. So, okay. I don't know if y'all have got any last minute questions. I saw this. Where was I? I think I was in Copenhagen on the 19th when there was the earthquake in Mexico City, which is a big deal because September 19th, there were two other very large earthquakes. I was here for the one in 2017. And then there was another one a couple of days later. So I was not here. Those earthquakes were felt here, but the epicenter was further away and they weren't as large. So there wasn't much damage here in Mexico City. I think there were only 2 fatalities. Closer to the epicenter of those earthquakes, there was more damage. And that is something to consider when you are doing your own country shopping. Is something like that a deal breaker? This is one of the things I used to teach in my geography class. Every place, every location has advantages and disadvantages to it. And people weigh those differently. Like we saw what Hurricane Ian did in Florida. I lived 40 miles off the coast of off the Texas coast. So I am familiar with hurricanes, but I would never live in a coastal area where I'm going to be catching, what is it called when the storm surge? Like I can be in a place that has hurricanes, but I don't want to be where I'm being met with the storm surge. And so there are people who are like, girl, there's no way in hell I'd live in Mexico City with earthquakes. Eh, I I can tell y'all, I really have never stressed about the earthquakes. When it's my time to go, it's going to be my time to go. I just hope that if I am stranded and stuck somewhere, I remember to bring the snacks in my bag that day. So I will at least have those. But for some people, the weather is one of those things I'm one of those people where it can make or break a destination for you. So you've got to weigh for yourself, what are the attributes of a location, the good ones and the bad ones, and what can you live with, and what is like, no, that's not happening. Okay. Ecuador, I looked at because getting a visa would be fairly, I don't want to say easy, but it wouldn't be very complicated. My problem with Ecuador is like when you're doing residency, you've got to stay for like 2 years straight. That's a no for me. So, or if it's not 2 years straight, it is a substantial amount of time that you have to stay in the country. And that is not going to work for who I am right now. There may come a day when it would, but right now that's not going to work for me. Okay. I think that is it. Oh, the Swedish pastries. I don't know the names of anything. Lots of basically cinnamon rolls and other things. I will tell y'all what was a disappointment was the hot chocolate situation. From my travels through Europe, I am used to hot chocolate, meaning hot melted chocolate. That is what I was looking forward to. If it's made from powder, typically the menu will call that hot cocoa or cacao or something like that. But apparently in Scandinavia, they did not get that memo because no one did melted chocolate. And that's really what I was looking for. So that, I guess, is some kind of difference between Northern Europe and the other parts of Europe. I I was a little bummed by that. But I did not, because I couldn't pronounce any of those names, y'all. So I just ate things. I don't know what they were all called. I don't know. Okay. I'm trying to think. When I went to Belgium, did I get any I was there like in the heat of the summer. So I don't know if I got any hot chocolate while I was there. Um, but uh like when I was in Europe in January 2020, that is literally, I built my whole itinerary around hot chocolate spots. Budapest Hungry came through like a champ. Let me tell you. Let me tell you. Uh, am I visiting the States anytime soon? I will be going back to the US at the beginning of next month. I need to go vote. Yes, I am aware that American citizens can vote from abroad, but I am a registered voter in the state of Texas, which is going out of its way to hamper voting for people who look like me. So I have a much better chance of getting my vote to count if I go to vote in person. So that's what I will be doing. I'll be in the US November. I'm going to Cuba in November. And then in December, I'm going to El Salvador. And we'll see what other trips might pop up in there. But that's the plan as of now. So, um, thank y'all for coming to hang out and hear my observations. I do have video from the trip that I told myself I would edit and make some videos to upload from y'all. Um, we'll see if that happens. It's my intention to make that happen. But just know y'all might not be getting uh Stockholm content until like December or January. Who knows? Who knows? I am not, I'm not gonna lie to y'all and tell you you'll have it next week, but just know that I would like to give it to you, and maybe uh I have video from Day of the Dead last year that I never did anything with, and here it is about to be Day of the Dead again. So who knows? We shall see. All right. If you have not subscribed, do that. I would love everybody to come back same time on Wednesday. We will be talking to a guest who is on their kind of country shopping journey and talk about what's worked for them and what has not worked for them. And I'm sure Exodus Summit, y'all. Exodus Summit starts this weekend. If you don't have a ticket, you need to get one. It's gonna be lit. Do the kids still say that? Because I don't know. I don't know. But if you are considering moving abroad, traveling, and you're like, I need to make more money, I need to figure out ways to get more money, you need to go to Exodus Summit. Go to exodussummit.com. You can find out all about the presentations and all of that good stuff. Thank you for the super chat, Monica. And yeah, I think that's it for us tonight, y'all. Bye. Bye, y'all.